Greetings for the day. Today we will study types of dyes and their applicability to different fibers. Dyes are natural or synthetic substances that add color to the fiber, yarns and fabrics. Dyes may combine chemically with fiber molecules, attach themselves to the fiber surface, or be absorbed into the fiber without the chemical action. A dye is a colored substance that has an affinity to the substrate to which it is being applied. The dye is generally applied in an aqueous solution, and may require a mordant to improve the fastness of the dye on the fiber. The molecules of the organic compounds called dyes are responsible for the color of the dyed and printed textile fiber materials. Dye is a compound that can be fixed on a substance in a more or less permanent state and evokes the visual sensation of a specific color. Dyeing is the process of imparting color to the fabric, which utilizes various dyes and auxiliaries. The majority of natural dyes are from plant sources: roots, berries, bark, leaves, and wood, fungi, and lichens. Textile dyeing dates back to the Neolithic period. Throughout history, people have dyed their textiles using common, locally available materials. Scarce dyestuffs that produced brilliant and permanent colors such as the natural invertebrate dyes Tyrian purple and crimson kermes were highly prized luxury items in the ancient and medieval world. Plant-based dyes such as wood, indigo, saffron, and madder were raised commercially and were important trade goods in the economies of Asia and Europe. Synthetic dyes are man_X0002 made. These dyes are made from synthetic resources such as petroleum byproducts and earth minerals. The first human-made organic aniline dye, morphine, was discovered by William Henry Perkin in 1856, which resulted as a failed attempt for synthesis of quinine. Different types of dyes, natural and synthetic, according to the source. Dyes are classified as natural and man-made dyes. Synthetic dyes. Synthetic dyes were first derived from coal tar in 1856. The synthetic dyes are constantly being improved as to beauty of color and color fastness. They are mostly accepted because of their bright colors and fastness properties. Classification depending on chemical composition, method of application. B. Chemical composition/method of application. This classification of the synthetic dyes based on the particular type of chemical composition, method of application of the dye is as follows. I. Basic dyes. Characteristics. These are also called cationic dyes, because in solution the basic dye molecule ionizes, causing its colored component to become a cation or positively charged radical. When the basic dyes were synthesized, the basic dyes were used on woolen silk, but they had very poor color fastness properties. When acrylic fibers began to establish, a new form of basic dye was evolved, which is known as modified basic dyes, which are used in dyeing and printing. They tend to be extinguishable from the other classes of textile dyes by their brilliance in color. Suitability to textiles. Basic dyes were formerly used on cellulosic and protein fibers, but because they produce fugitive colors that fade quickly, their popularity for these fibers has been decreased. The fiber most readily colored with basic dyes are synthetic acrylics and modacrylic fibers. These dyes are used for direct printing on acetate, and for discharge printing on cotton. Method of application. Basic dyes are applied to acrylic fibers from slightly acidic dye liquor. Basic dyes have good substantivity for acrylic fibers and exhaust well within narrow limits of temperature. Because of their poor leveling properties, care must be exercised when applying basic dyes to acrylic fibers to avoid unlevel dyeing. This is achieved through the use of a retarder and carefully regulating the temperature during dyeing. Fastness properties. Dyed and printed acrylic textiles using basic dyes have excellent light fastness, which is about 6-7. Wash fastness of acrylic textiles dyed with basic dyes is very good, about 4-5. Hydrophobic nature of the fibrous. These dyes are characterized by brilliance and intense hues. The bright colors achieved from this class do not occur with other dye classes. Acid dyes. Characteristics. Acid dyes are so called because they are usually applied under acidic conditions. These are the sodium salts of sulfonic acids. Dyes are classified as acid if they can be applied satisfactorily to protein fibers. Suitability to textiles. Acidification of basic dyes led to creation of acid dyes that are used mostly on woolen silk. They are also being more widely used for dyeing man-made, synthetic, nylon fibers and natural protein fibers. These anionic dyes have also been found useful in printing fluorinated wool and silk. Method of application. The application of acid dyes to protein fibers results in an ionic or salt link between the dye molecule and the fiber polymer. The point of the fiber polymer at which the dye is attached is termed as dye site. In wool, the dye sites are the many amino groups of the fiber. Under dyeing, the amino group becomes positively charged and attracts the negatively charged dye anion. Satisfactory dye uptake can be ensured only after heating the acid dye liquor. Acetic acid, HCl, or sulfuric acid is used in dyeing. No transfer of dye molecules from the dye liquor to the fiber polymer system can be observed below 400 C. The rate of dyeing increases steadily as the temperature increases. Increasing the temperature of the dye liquor provides the energy required by the dye molecule to leave the dye liquor and enter the polymer system of the fiber. Direct dyes. Characteristics. Direct dyes are also called substantive colors because of their excellent substantivity for cellulosic textile materials. These dyes are easily applied to the cellulosic fibers from simple solutions in water, hence, these are called cotton dyes. Turmeric is the only natural direct dye stuff that has a direct affinity for cotton. Pottinger was the person to discover Congo red direct dye in 1894. Advantages of direct dyes are ease of application, low cost, wide range of available colors. Suitability to textiles. The fabrics most readily colored with direct dyes are the man-made and natural cellulosic fibers, that is, cotton, viscose fibers and cupromonium rayon etc., much used for printing on dischargeable dyed backgrounds. Method of application. The application of direct dyes to the cellulosic fabrics is a simple method. These dyes are applied to the cellulosic fibers from aqueous liquor to which electrolyte called sodium salt is added. The cellulosic fiber in the dye liquor has negatively charged surface attracting sodium cations which are positively charged. The presence of the chloride ions in the dye liquor assists the dye anion to leave the dye liquor and enter the fiber polymer system. The application of heat to the dye liquor increases the energy of the dye components of the dye liquor, swells the fiber and accelerates the rate at which dye occurs. While dyeing, light shades uneven dyeing may occur. This can be avoided by reducing the salt percentage. Soap or turkey red oil may be added to the dye bath to obtain greater evenness. 20% of the common salt on the weight of the material is used generally to exhaust the dye bath. In case of heavy shades, more salt can be added to the dye liquor to enable better exhaustion. The fabric should be rinsed well immediately after it is removed from the dye bath in order to avoid deposition of salt on the material. Fastness properties. Fabrics which are dyed and printed with direct colors have a moderate light fastness rating about 3. A relative short exposure to direct sunlight is enough to initiate degradation of the dye molecule. Fabrics dyed with direct dyes have relatively poor wash fastness rating about 2-3. Direct dyes are relatively easy to apply to cellulosic textiles. However, although relatively easy to remove, which gave rise to the saying easy on and easy off. alcohol dyes. Characteristics. These are sometimes referred to as ice dyes or developed colors. These are also called as azoic dyes because of the reason that their molecules contain an azo group. These dyes are mostly used in the handloom industry for dyeing of cellulosic fibers. These dye stuffs are characterized by their beauty, brightness of shades and their all-round fastness properties. Yellow, golden yellow, orange, brown, scarlet, red, maroon, blue, violet and black shades are produced regularly by the cotton dyers. The first azoic color was discovered by Thomas and Robert Holliday, who produced a bluish-red shade. Suitability to textiles. Azoic dyes are used to a great extent on man-made and natural cellulosic fibers. For special purposes it is used on nylon and acetate. These dyes are extensively used for printing since colors are dischargeable and work with other groups.